online, on the TuneIn app, and on your smart speaker. Play Shock Radio.
This is Shock
News.
Hello and welcome to the first Shock News podcast of 2026. You're joined today by me, Benny Fidamore, with Noah Buckingham-Reid and Will Phillips, and it is the first show of the year, guys. Have you got any New Year's resolutions?
I've got a big one. I'd like to visit more places within Salford because I think since I moved to university, I've stuck to like the university areas, so Media City, obviously. Maybe I've gone about as far as Pendlebury, but I'd like to see more of the whole area because Salford has so many people living there. I've never even been to Eccles, and it's such an I've never been, but I know that there's a lot going on there. I'd like to give it a visit, to be honest.
It's so easy for students just to stick to like the same places. We'll be in Media City, Powerhouse, and then Manchester's only down the road.
Yeah.
So heading into there is not too far. But yeah, definitely see more places in Salford. Mine, maybe just read more. I'd like to read more this year. Books, articles.
Absolutely, articles. Yeah.
Shock news.
Shock news
articles.
Are you reading anything at the moment?
I'm currently reading Kamala Harris's autobiography.
There you go.
107 Days, which is an insight to her short-lived run up to the election.
You never fail to surprise me, Noah Buckingham-Reid. And yeah, I think that's very true. Getting into a routine is probably my New Year's resolution. So let's kick off with the headlines that are dominating the world's news already this year. And the first thing we have is an under-16 social media ban. This has already happened in Australia, but this could be implemented in the UK. The government are encouraging people to get involved, have their say on the matter. What are your initial thoughts over a ban for under-16s on social media in the UK?
I think it's a good principle, but I just don't know how we're going to enforce it. You've got things like VPNs, fake IDs. It would be such a difficult thing to actually put into place that it is almost like, do we want to make it illegal? Do we not just want better regulations rather than a complete ban overall? I think that it's one of those. Great idea, maybe not the best way to go about it in terms of just a straight ban on under 16s. I don't know what Noah feels about it.
I'm not surprised this has become the leading conversation in Westminster. I think we seem to look to Australia a lot to see what new policies can come into effect over here. And one of those things, and we've sort of been looking at that charge to lead that fight back against harm to children, especially online. And this is something which especially targets that. We know how many users there are in the UK. Some apps, a lot of social media apps are limited to, I think, 13, some of them 16. However, that's not been enforced strictly up until potentially until now, where there could be a flatline ban which would require IDs to use these social media sites.
And Will, you said at the start that you think it's a good principle. Why do you think it's a good principle to ban under-16s from social media? What dangers do you think are out there for under-16s when they go online?
Well, like I say, obviously, I have said that I don't necessarily think the straight ban's probably the best way of going about it because I think it would just be too hard to actually enforce. But in principle, putting some regulations in place for under-16s on social media is not bad at all. How many cases have we heard in the past 10, 20 years of young people taking their life because of cyberbullying or other general social media related issues? Popular trends go around that cause harm to the young people. It's clearly they're young people. They're easy to influence. They've got their phones on them all day. And I'm not trying to sound like an old person here, but it's not good for them. They need to go out and explore the world. And I think that's something that they're not getting a proper feel of everything just by experiencing things on social media.
It's not just a case of the direct dangers from, say, other people, bullying, cyberbullying. It's more a case of actually what is it doing to people's brains in the same way that we ban alcohol and tobacco to people under 18 because of the damage it can do to their development. Is that kind of what you're getting at there? Is that social media is damaging to the brain as well?
100%. The brain needs new information. Everyone knows that. I myself will spend 8 hours a day on my phone. That is not good. And I'm pretty much a grown man. For the young people, it's even more detrimental because they're not getting that vital new information they need to develop their brains properly because they're on their phone 8 hours a day. I did it when I was 16. I'm sure you did it when you were 16 as well, Betty. I'm sure you did it when you were younger. It's not good for young people to not be able to experience new things properly, and I think that's what social media massively prevents.
I think there is an argument, though, that people can use social media for positive reasons, and that includes under-16s. I mean, surely technology that they find on social media can be educational for them. It gives them the chance to explore different things, create new content, and let that creative side of their brain unleash. So is there an argument that perhaps social media shouldn't be banned for under 16s because that would limit their opportunities to make the most of the technology available to them?
One thing we know is giving community to people online, sort of safe places, people who otherwise don't have that at home or in their lives or at school, for example, young people. And it's been actually supported by some children's charities and campaigners who oppose this sort of blanket ban to ban social media for under 16s, warning it could be ineffective, it could be exclusionary for people who benefit from that online community and that online support that they receive. And critics have argued that age checks might be easy to bypass anyway, and it could raise major privacy concerns. It's already been in previous policy. Recently, in the back end of last year, when there was effective ID checks which went onto pornographic websites, and now seeing that come in, it could be ineffective, and we're already seeing people come out opposing it who are supposedly in the favour of young people.
So there's plenty of issues here. So first of all, we think it is a good idea to ban it to protect under 16s. However, is it going to work because of VPNs and what you've said? I actually saw a Sky News report where they tried to get in using fake ID on a pornographic website, and it happened. They could do it in seconds using a bit of AI. So again, it's hard to enforce, but there's also that argument that it closes opportunities for young people to communicate and maybe be creative and educate themselves. What should the social media companies do instead to ensure that people are safe online? Is it a case of banning harmful content and being a bit tougher on that?
So in my opinion, like I say, I do want to make something very clear. I do not think a blanket ban is a good idea whatsoever. I think stricter regulations are needed. That is the answer. There is no reason. Do not let it completely unregulated like it nearly is at the moment. But you cannot go the other side of things and have a blanket ban. So for me, in terms of what the social media companies can do, a very easy thing that I think a lot of companies have now introduced, but needs to probably be encouraged a bit more to be used by the user, is screen time limits. I think on Instagram now, you can set it so you can only spend X amount of time on the app. Now, I think that would be very good if people actually used it. So I think getting awareness that those kind of systems are already in place, maybe parents can speak to their kids, actually encourage them to use them to kind of limit that amount of screen time and hopefully get them off their phone for longer so they can experience the things they need to experience without losing that obviously massive bonus of being online.
I wonder if it's worth the case that the social media companies are actually monitoring what people are being messaged and stuff, and if they're being sent harmful content, pornographic content, drugs, violence, which could scar young people. Is it worth the social media companies regulating private messages being sent on these platforms as well as posts, or would that be an invasion of privacy too far?
I think that's where the debate comes. The big response to this, almost sort of following up on what you said, is that there's been calls for the social media companies to be regulated heavily and more heavily than they are now, and also for the government to do more. This is the government part doing more, but the government, it's also their role to step in order to regulate these companies. What we found, and what the government I think have also found, is that it's increasingly difficult to do that, including privacy concerns, of free market concerns. I'm sure that Elon Musk would say if you asked him. The general tone around Westminster from people who have spoken out about it seems to be that it's important to have this conversation, important to have this sort of growing concern about children's mental health, screen addiction, online harm, things that we've discussed, things that you mentioned. And we did have the cross-party support, and we also had Lib Dem education spokeswoman Munira Wilson say that the government consultation risks kicking the can down the road. So as much as there is cross-party support and importance, sort of widespread acknowledgement of the importance of having the conversation, I think there is concerns the government now needs to push on and take action on this.
Well, the latest is that peers in the House of Lords are being urged to back a ban on social media for under 16s in the UK. Conservative peer Lord Nash has tabled an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill, which will be debated later on Wednesday. And the amendment would raise the minimum age for social media use to 16. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall has announced a swift consultation on how to keep children safe online, and that includes a potential ban for under 16s, overnight curfews on social media use, measures to prevent doom scrolling, and stronger age verification by social media firms, with Ofcom issuing tougher guidance to schools, including advising staff not to use phones for personal reasons in front of pupils. And even if the amendment is passed, MPs could overturn it later in the Commons. Do we have any final thoughts on this potential ban of under 16s on social media in the UK?
I think it's just worth really keeping a track on for now. It really could become quite a political flashpoint. I know that Kemi Badenoch has said that also with her government, if she was to come into government, she would enforce the same ban. She accused Labour of copying Conservative policy on this point. So as much as there is cross-party support, the ways of enforcing it, inflicting it, of making these decisions is no doubt going to be controversial between parties and political leaders looking to gain a bit of foot up, especially as we head into the May elections.
I think that in a time where it's quite hard to see a lot of good policies and good thinking from either side of the political aisle, this is a policy that I do believe is in the hearts are in the right place, but going about it in the right way is vital. I don't think a blanket ban is the way to do it.
Right, well, brilliant stuff. Thank you both. So moving from the international, Australia, national story, let's go a bit more local. So our first local story of the year, and that is that residents are urged to have their say on a £23.4 million transport upgrade scheme here in Salford. So the aim is to create a greener, more prosperous city with better connections between Salford Crescent and Media City. And so residents, they're being asked to have their say. All of us in this room, we're all Salford residents. You both live around the Salford Crescent area and are commuting to Media City on a regular basis, like most of our students here, or most of our media students at least here at the University of Salford. What do you want to see to make your journey from here to over there a lot easier?
I wish we could have every single minute back that I've waited for the 50 bus to come along the route, and just if I got all those hours back, I think I'd have maybe a whole new life. I wouldn't be sat here. Who knows? But clearly this is important work is going to happen. There's lots of people who make that travel, like commute out there from across Salford. And yeah, especially students are going to feel sort of the impact of this if there's any changes coming.
Yeah, obviously students are probably one of the bigger proportions of people that are going to be affected by it, but there are a lot of jobs in Media City as is for Salford people. So I think that
So it's not just uni students.
Yeah, it's not just
regular Salfordian residents who may live in the Lower Broughton area and beyond, a bit deeper in, who are using bus services to get to Media City. Because actually, there is no bus route to Media City from, say, Frederick Road, because the 10 doesn't stop at Media City. The only route from this side of Salford into Media City, and in fact from the other side of Salford, if you go past Seedley and towards Pendleton, is the 50. And those areas are not covered at all. I mean, this is specifically about the Crescent, but from a wider point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that one thing that they could do, and I think we spoke about this before we went on air, the 51 runs early in the morning, and there's probably the most direct route you can get from Salford Crescent to Media City, rather than taking the detours that the 50 does. I think a good step where they could do is just make that run all day. The fact that it only runs during 9 till, I think is it 7 till 10 it runs?
I think it's early in the morning.
It's early in the morning. I think it's the standard early morning commuting hours.
I've only ever seen it if I've been going in for a 9 a.m. lecture, not even a 10 a.m. lecture. I've never seen it.
Well, there you go. Like, it's such an easy thing to implement. I don't know why they don't just have it running throughout the day, to be honest.
Well, what I would say is that the 50 goes all the way to East Didsbury. It's a very long line bus service. And when you have a service which comes from Didsbury, has to go via the city centre and then all the way to the Quays. I mean, all of the bus services are quite long routes. I mean, there's so many to Bolton, for example. However, because it's so long, there are risks of delays. And I think we know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the 50 service, I mean, we've found it through personal experience to be a bit crazy. Like, it says that the buses will come every 10 to 15 minutes, but there'll be times when you can be waiting half an hour, 45 minutes.
And then 2 will show up.
And so it's all a bit over the show, isn't it? So maybe is it worth looking at bus routes which go to Media City, but maybe terminate at Piccadilly Gardens or shoot?
Yes.
Avoid that.
Yes.
It's getting out of city centre, which I think delays so many of those buses.
And perhaps some bus routes that connect Frederick Road with the Quays and Pendleton with the Quays a bit better as well. These are all definitely options, because what I would say is that when you head into Manchester from Salford Crescent, you can get the 35, 36, 37, 38, you can get the 800, V1, 67. The options are endless. Some of them go to Piccadilly Gardens, some of them go to Shoot Hill. But if you miss a bus, it's not that bad, because one will come along within about 3 or 4 minutes. Whereas if you miss the 50, which is the only bus going to Salford Quays, well, or if you miss the 50 coming out of the Salford Quays, you'll be waiting for a long time. So perhaps it's time to make it a bit more of a level playing field, have more buses going that way.
Definitely worth noting that this money will also go to more shelters on the route, so bus shelters, some more higher curbs for accessibility, to get onto these buses from more bus stops. And a big part of it is the new cycle lanes, which will go pretty much from down here, Langworthy Road, Broadway roundabout, all up to Media City as well. So it's more exciting.
Well, that's definitely good for the environment as well, to have more e-bikes available as well. I'm just trying to think. There's also the option, I suppose, of extending the Eccles line out, making a bit of a tram connection that way. So there's a lot of things for Greater Manchester's Transport Department to look at for TfGN. And people can have their say on these plans until the 22nd of February. There are public drop-in sessions that are planned to take place, so people can either go online and have their say, or on the Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, between 9:30 and 2:30 at Langworthy Cornerstone, 451 Liverpool Street, Salford, M6 5QQ, or at the Salford Water Sports Centre, 15 The Quays, Salford, M50 3SQ. That's on Thursday, the 5th of February 2026, from 4:30 in the afternoon till 7:30. And these drop-in sessions will allow people to speak to members of staff about the proposals to make it easier to travel from here to other parts of Salford and in a greener, more environmentally friendly way. Anything that you guys want to say on that before we move on?
I think it's good that they're looking at it. It's a complicated issue because obviously you need better links to Media City, because Media City is probably it's the fastest growing area in the area. You need to have better links to it, so to make it accessible for the people who actually live in Salford. So it's good that they're looking at it, and I hope that the plans, whatever they do to sell them, come in quickly and can start actually making a difference.
Yeah, and if you want to request a paper copy of the survey, you can email hello@bnetwork.com, or alternatively call 0161 244 1444. Sticking with transport and sticking with our Mancunian patch, as I like to say, Northern Powerhouse Rail. The government has recommitted to Northern Powerhouse Rail, unveiling long-awaited infrastructure plans on Tuesday. Plans include a new high-speed line between Liverpool and Manchester in the 2030s, with a Birmingham to Manchester line later, replacing the cancelled northern leg of HS2. It means that Manchester Airport is set to become the most connected airport outside of London via high-speed rail. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says this is the most important decision she has made, insisting the rail plan will go ahead despite scepticism. And it eases mounting frustration among northern leaders about the lack of a clear economic growth strategy. Andy Burnham, our mayor here in Greater Manchester, said he had secured a political win, having held on backing the deal until this week. This move may help Labour push back Reform UK in the polls, which has opposed major rail expansion in the north. And we'll start with that Reform point, actually, because we've been off air for weeks now, and there's been so much going on. Reform is just carrying on to climb in the polls, and more people defecting. They're getting more and more MPs. So Labour are struggling, aren't they? I mean, I've seen polls where Labour have been behind Reform and the Greens and the Tories in 4th place. Do you think this, because the red wall in the north, more so the northeast than the northwest, to be fair, but equally so, do you think this will help them to retain voters in the northwest at the next election and in the West Midlands?
Yes, yes. I mean, it's a win. I think that it is. They need to deliver it first before it's going to make a huge impact. There's a lot of trust was lost after the HS2 issues. So I think if they want to make the most of this opportunity, they need to actually follow through and make it happen.
It does make you ask the question, why did they cancel the second part of HS2? And is there any point in it having why are we having 2 separate projects to do the same thing? How much money is being spent on this? I think that could be some opposition to it. What do you think, Noah?
I do want to counteract and say I don't think this is going to help Labour at all. I mean, Reform and promised these things. Essentially, what as much as Rachel Reeves can say this is the most important decision I'll make in office, essentially they're not saying the construction might start, the project wouldn't be finished until the 2030s. 2030s, technically, on current track, we're going to have a different government. Whatever the situation is, even if it's Labour, there's essentially will be personnel differences, there'll be funding in different places, there'll be new world issues, there'll be new domestic issues. These are all things which you can't factor in for. Whether you're going to turn people around in votes in support for your party by telling them in 10 years' time, beyond, we're finally going to have this high-speed rail set up. What are you essentially promising? What are you delivering as a government now? I know there's been issues, and we know that Andy Burnham has long sort of backed this. But in terms of immediate, short-term impact, even impact for 2029 and beyond, it doesn't feel like we're any closer to having this in the UK. And it feels like the best time for this was about 10 years ago.
100%. I do think, though, if they are actually able to show their workings a little bit and I think people right now from this government are looking for a bit of certainty. They're looking for promises to actually be delivered on. So yes, I do agree with you. Is this a little too late? Possibly. But I think if they're able to show that there is at least some sort of plan, and it's a plan that people like, that's going to be good news for them, no?
Well, look, it was late last year that there was a cross-party group who essentially labelled this as how to not run a development project. We have development projects across the country, none of which are particularly, known to be efficient. This Labour government tried to really push these things through. They tried to push growth and building, and what a big problem with this Labour government is that they haven't really been able to find a way to do that efficiently. And they came in off the back of a Tory government, which had failed to do that too. And what they promised is something that they are seemingly not at the moment delivering. So I think until you can really put the material goods in front of the British people, they will find other things to get behind, find other things to support. And if that is the populism and tactics of Reform UK, then that is where we're heading.
I actually do agree with Noah.
Well, if we go back to the history and the political context of this situation, in 2015, George Osborne championed HS2, with Boris Johnson later tying it to his levelling up agenda. However, Rishi Sunak, when he came into office, scrapped HS2's northern leg, leaving the project and Northern Powerhouse Rail largely unfunded and undeveloped. So another new government coming in. This has been, a topic of conversation for Cameron's government, for May's government, for Johnson, for Sunak, for Starmer. And it's just something that seems to constantly be brought down. I think what you're saying is right, that if there is no actual evidence of it happening, then how are people going to get behind it? However, what I would say is that the government is claiming it is different this time, because they say planning has come before promises. They've accused the Conservative Party of promising things without budgeting for it. And they say that routes will be built to lower specifications than HS2, making it a less costly project. A more expensive airport route was chosen deliberately because of its growth potential and all the travelling that probably happens into Manchester Airport. And there is said to be near consensus across local and national leaders on the strategy, so it appears that people are in agreement. But I think you're right. If we don't see it actually being built...
It comes back to my point that the best time for this was about a decade ago, 2 decades ago, but the second best time to give sort of credence to the point of the Andy Burnhams and of that wing of the Labour Party, that the second best time to do it is right now. And it's now time to get on top of this and to really get it moving. Again, it won't be within their tenure. So I do wonder if part of Andy Burnham is wondering that by the time he gets to 2029 and he's the Labour candidate, could this be sort of an issue that he's running on, that within his tenure, he will get HS2, he will get the high-speed rail done?
Well, that's actually quite an exciting thing to say. Well, from a political point of view, it's very interesting to see what the future could hold in that sense, because that could be a real game changer in the political atmosphere. But yes, this is a symbolic green light for Northern Powerhouse Rail. It's not full speed ahead, but it is a shift from promises to a plan. And so it could offer fresh hope to Northerners that the tunnels ahead may finally lead somewhere. Any more thoughts on Northern Powerhouse Rail?
It's like a toxic relationship, isn't it? They keep on telling you they're going to change, and they just... I mean, until you see the changes there, you're just not sure if you can fully believe them.
No, I think you're right. We'll see. We'll see. Right, so let's get some quick stories then. Sir Ian McKellen is going to portray Salford's very own Ellis Lowry in a new BBC documentary. Did you say you had something more to tell us about this, Will?
Not so much about the new BBC documentary, there's not much has been said, but Ellis Lowry obviously is a Salford legend. His the 50th anniversary of his passing is happening next month. So, I mean, Ian McKellen, obviously a very accomplished actor. I believe he was recently named as on some lists as the greatest British actor of all time. So having that sort of prestige being brought to a local hero, I mean, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? So, the hope is that this documentary will kind of put a bit of a spotlight on Salford for a little while, with that prestige of Ian McKellen coming in.
Ian McKellen's 86 years old now, and he's still going. And like you said, one of the most iconic British actors. Lord of the Rings. We've seen him in X-Men, Avengers: Doomsday. He's been across to Hollywood, back around again.
And that's just the last few years.
And that's just the last few years.
86, talk about longevity, eh? We've got fly tipping problems across the region, and in fact, councils are putting up their fines. Salford is now saying you can get fined up to £50,000 for fly tipping. Have you noticed it being a problem when out and about?
In certain areas, 100%. I think that if you go in certain places in and around Salford, and even Greater Manchester as a whole, to be fair, it can be really bad. I mean, you yourself saw it when you...
I was quite horrified by how much fly tipping there was between here and Liverpool, particularly on the side of the M62. You just saw sofas and chairs just everywhere, just completely fly tipped. And I do think since I've come back, I don't know whether it's because you go home and there's not maybe so much litter in your area or whatnot, but it does seem to have got worse. There's a lot of dog poo on the streets as well. It's just not very nice.
For me personally, I come from an area that actually has had quite a few issues with fly tipping in the past. So, and one of the things that I love the government did to fix it was just to introduce more bins and more tips. It's not a problem that people want to put the money in to solve, because no one wants to say, oh yeah, we're building a new tip. It's not
flashy.
It's not flashy.
Do you think that would do better than just increasing fines? Because at the end of the day, £50,000, if you're going to fly tip, when it was, I don't know how much it was before, but even if it was a large amount of money before, these are both massive. This is a big chunk of money, and if you're still fly tipping, this how much more can you really put a fine up by?
A lot of people don't leave their rubbish out onto the road or wherever they might leave it because they want to, but I find it quite unlikely that people are actively trying to make the environment worse. So I think you have to look at why can't people find better ways to dispose of their...
Council needs to offer more support.
Exactly.
Yeah. And finally, we had a campus fire here at the University of Salford in one of the university accommodation buildings, Delaney. There was a fire as a result of a tumble dryer setting in flames. I mean, that must have been quite scary, actually. I mean, I've never had anything like that when I was in Peel Park accommodation last year.
Everyone knows the irritability of the fire alarm going off constantly at times, or going off at inconvenient times. You're about to walk out if you live in an apartment block and your fire alarm goes off at 4 a.m, and there you are in your pajamas stood outside. But I think this proves how important it is that we, make sure that your fire alarm is working in your house.
Yeah,
because it can happen anywhere.
It can happen anywhere. And this is one of the first times in the world we've seen sort of that actually happen in a big apartment block like that. And luckily, it was contained where it was.
It's a good point you make there about fire alarms. I remember actually when I never lived at Peel Park, but when I lived at my old Halls residence, the fire alarm went off. I think it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was not getting up. I was perfectly happy to lay in my bed and whatever may be. And thankfully there wasn't a fire, so it worked out fine. But I think there is a point to be made that it's really worth making sure that fire alarms work correctly, so that when there is an actual fire, people get out safely. Because there would have been a lot of people in Delaney who I'm sure heard the fire alarm go off and just assumed it was another one of the false alarms. So I think that there's a point to be made there about making sure that if the alarm's going off,
you do get out.
You do get out.
Yeah. Little public safety message there from the Shock News podcast. And you can read more about that on the Shock Radio website, shockradio.com/news, for all the articles that we have written about local news here in Salford impacting our students. Salford City also beat Swindon to get to the fourth round of the FA Cup. You can catch this sports show on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock or on our YouTube channel as well. And there's loads of sports articles on the news page as well at shockradio.com/news. And that's about all we've got time for. Well, thank you very much to both of you, Will Phillips and Noah Buckingham-Reid, our guests today. I've been your host, Benny Fidamore, and we'll be back again next week to discuss more of the local issues happening in Salford. See you later.